Is. Yeah, we're recording, Ronald. That already started. Yeah, so this podcast has officially begun.
One of these days, we're going to get this straight where we don't start off the podcast like we're like a cowboy that's been transported to modern times and we don't know what recording is and we're not sure what's that flashing.
Right. That's what you call an aha moment. They call that in the industry an aha moment.
When you realize that you're already recording a podcast that you're on?
Yep.
For the 71st time.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 71.
Yeah, well, on that note, 71, here we are. This is a very special episode. Ronald and I, we did one of these last year for a big event here in Baltimore, Maryland. I've gone to for many years. Ronald has as well, and John, over time, has also been a patron of the Maryland Film Festival. This past weekend, we were fortunate enough to be able to go to a number of screenings, both together as a group and also just independently, just to kind of cover as many as we could.
Yeah.
A lot of different kinds of films, obviously, are on display at the film festival. It used to only run 3 days, and it's really incredible that the festival over the years has really just increased in popularity and exposure. And also, I think nationally, it actually gets a lot more attention than it ever did. You can tell that usually just by looking at the films that a festival can have on their schedule. And this year, they had no lack of nationally known films, that films that were at Sundance, South by Southwest, even international film festivals, and we saw a few of them.
Yeah, it's great to see those movies, even though I didn't get to see even close to all of the films I wanted to see at this festival.
Sure, yeah.
But several of the things that played were things that I had, I've read about, and I'd read about the Sundance screening, read about the South by Southwest screening, and that kind of thing. And it's just there's something kind of exciting about seeing them in that atmosphere where there's this sort of positive vibe about movies, and I don't know, it's that can be so fun. It's such a great way to see a lot of movies, and sometimes even the experience of seeing them at a festival almost overwhelms the quality of the film, and we might get to a couple like that, but in general, I was really impressed by the offerings that they had this year.
Yeah, I mean, you have documentaries, there's comedies, there's shorts, there's horror films, drama. I mean, weird like fucking movies. We were at a Q&A with Bobcat Goldthwait, where we saw his film Willow Creek this weekend, and he said, Baltimore, it's like a second home to him. He's at every Maryland Film Festival, but he made a really cool comment just basically saying that, weird is in the water in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it really does, you can feel it. If you look at if you get your hands on, or if you go to mdfilmfest.com and look at the program from this year, and just how many different movies, kinds of film, it's impressive.
Well, I love that he said that, too, because that audience was... I mean, there were people in their 60s, there were people in their 20s, and everything in between.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I think if we all sit around and pat ourselves on the back for being weird and unique, that's not a good thing. But it's nice to know, it's just nice to know that someone of that nature would be drawn to exactly what is unique about a city like Baltimore, and the kind of support of the community, and the fact that there is this kind of acceptance of really eclectic things in this town. And it's like, I think that you really see that.
Absolutely. And it's a blast every year.
It was. I mean, and I love that it kind of kicks off summer, and it's at a good time where it's not too hot, not too cold, and it's amazing to meet people that have common interests.
Yeah, and you cross paths with people that you've seen around town before.
Yeah.
I know you ran into some of your friends, Ronald, and
fellow comedians. Same here.
Random
people. I ran into my sister. Yeah. I had no idea she was gonna be.
You had no idea she was living here.
Yeah, you guys aren't even on speaking terms.
But yeah, now this year though it was 5 days. Every year it seems to get longer and longer, which is great. And I don't know, they're not going to really be able to go much further than that unless they really are able to expand the venues that they use around town. But I mean, they use the historic Charles Theater for most of their screenings, and also at Micah and some other spaces around town. But
which are like a mile or so apart, which is kind of an ordeal at times to get from one place to the other.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's fun.
It's the city. You figure it out.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a city person, but for that weekend I can figure it out. I guess it started off, John. You actually, I think, saw the first movie.
Yeah, the movie that was kind of like an event movie.
Oh, yeah.
It kicked off the first night. It's a movie, Hit and Stay, a documentary directed by Skiz Cizik and Joe Tropea. They're both sort of Baltimore fixtures. Skiz is a musician in a ton of bands, and he's always got a handful of film projects going. And he was actually one of the program directors for the Maryland Film Festival for about 8 years, and really helped kind of shepherd it into existence. And he's done that. He's been a projectionist and a jury member and part of the board on a number of film festivals. So it was kind of I know that Skiz and Joe were excited because the Maryland Film Festival was the first time their documentary played for a local audience.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Prior to that, they had been in. They won the audience award in the Chicago Underground Film Festival.
Wow.
And they also had a previous screening in Kansas, the Kansas City Film Festival, which I guess that's actually in Missouri, isn't it?
Yeah.
But but he said that the screening at the Maryland Film Festival was the first time was the first one where their color correction and the sound mix and everything else was in place. And it was definitely a really packed house. It's a really interesting documentary. It sort of uses the story of the Catonsville Nine, which were a very famous group of activists. It was in 1968, and the unique thing about what these protesters did was, well, two things. One is that this was really one of the first times that a protest, an anti-war protest, was conducted by people that weren't sort of part of the youth culture. And so rather than hippies protesting the war, it was, Catholic priests and former nuns and basically devout religious people that had a very Christ-like objection to the idea of, your country sending you to kill people. And so the way they struck out against the draft was to go to basically the offices where the draft cards were being held, and they brought the boxes of them out into the parking lot outside this location, and they used homemade napalm, threw it on the files, and then set it aflame. Which nowadays kind of seems like, well, they could just go to the backup, right? Those draft cards weren't the only copy, but of course in 1968, those were the only copies.
Wow.
So the government really had no way of people would have to basically kind of volunteer to be put back in the running. So at that point, it was a protest that was both a symbolic gesture and something that actually affected the government's ability to track down some of these people that might have been sent to Vietnam. Rather than continue to talk about it myself, I had the privilege of having Skiz come over to the house, and we talked for a bit about Hit and Stay and the Maryland Film Festival. So I suppose now would be the time to hear that. Ronald and Steve, you guys can just sit back and enjoy the leisure time this affords you.
Nice.
Thanks.
Here they come again.
Joe Tropea was working on a dissertation, correct? It originated as a dissertation?
Or a master's. I'm not really sure. My education doesn't let me know what the meanings of those big words.
And then at some point it was turned into an article for, was it the city paper, the Baltimore City paper?
Right, which ran it as to gearing up for the 40th anniversary of the Catonsville Nine.
So at what point did it become a movie?
Around 2007, I guess when Joe was writing what became known as Hit and Stay. That was the name of the article in the city paper. But as he was researching it, I had made a comment to him that some of these people are going to start dying off soon. Don't just record them with an audio recorder, record them with a video camera, because that footage will become very valuable to some documentary filmmaker down the road. Mm-hmm. And that ended up with him roping me in to go videotape the interviews. And he roped in Scott Braid and J.R. Fritsch. I wasn't the only one. But I think after a few interviews, he was liking how the footage was looking. He was liking how the interviews were going. And he decided that he wanted to make that documentary. And originally he asked me if I wanted to be involved. And I said, no, I've got too many other projects. I just don't have the time. But I kept helping him out. And then when he asked me again, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I'm getting more work done on his film than my own. So I should probably just go ahead and be a partner on this film with him. Joe was the producer. He did all the research. He conducted all the interviews. We co-wrote and directed it. And then I did most of the shooting and the editing. And that's how it broke down.
How important do you think it was that these were devout Catholics and not, unwashed hippies?
If you're a middle-aged person and you're sitting home watching the TV and you see, a scruffy-haired college-age kid protesting the draft, you're going to be like, oh, of course he doesn't want to get drafted. But if you see a middle-aged priest saying there's something wrong with this war and we need to stand up and start paying attention to it and see what we can do to stop it, that's gonna have more clout. That's gonna, make a bigger impact, I think.
Did you find anything specific about the process of accruing information versus following a subject around to get footage?
All right. I had the easy way out on this one because Joe did most of that work. He found the subjects. Actually, that's not even fair to say. Joe did all that work. He found all the subjects. He decided who we would interview. He actually arranged when and where we would interview them, and he came up with all the questions and did all the research about these people. I just had to ride along with him and shoot it. So I was learning a lot of this as we were going. My creative input didn't really jump into full throttle until the editing, which I'm kind of glad because I got to the story sort of unfolded for me as we were shooting it. I did not really fully understand all the subject matter at the time or who these different people were and how they related to each other. But once we were all done shooting, I sifted through all those interviews and was able to start putting things together. And I was having a lot of aha moments that Joe probably had already had. So it was really, it was amazing editing this thing because I got so excited, like, wow, this is a really great story. In the way that something that happened in this action connects to something that happens in that action later on. Cool. This is storytelling.
Was it really that direct of a line between this event and the events that followed it, or was it just something that was kind of bubbling up all over?
It was direct. The one thing we sort of draw attention to is it wasn't the first of these actions. In the film, we talk about the Baltimore Four. There was also one before that where somebody poured feces on draft files. But
The Dave Clark 5?
Yeah, that would have been a good one. But what made the Catonsville Nine the big one that it was, the one that got so much attention, is that the Baltimore Four had already happened, and that had put Phil Berrigan into the news. And his brother Dan was a pretty famous poet, and they were both priests. So now you have two brothers, they're priests. One of them's a famous poet, one of them is already a famous activist, and they pull off this much bigger action. And that's what got that action so much more attention. And then the fact that immediately after the action, George Michie and some of the other members of the Nine, it was their goal to keep it going, to make sure that wasn't the last action, that there were plenty more. We have one guy in the film that actually says, George Michie in particular decided that every time there's a trial, organize another action, at least one other action. Mm-hmm. A lot of the actions are connected, some of them aren't. There was one great quote that I wish we could have put in the film where somebody said there's a reason you never hear about the Texas Five. It's because they wouldn't have gotten out alive, that they wouldn't have survived. In California, somebody explained that the jail time for one of these actions would have been far more severe than it was, on the East Coast. I want to say 20 years or something like, versus, 1 or 2 years. And so, a 20-year-old is less likely to want to spend 20 years in jail than a 20-year-old would be to spend 2 years in jail.
That notion of the goal being to get arrested, that kind of seems now like the point. That's the default setting for a lot of protesting, is that that you're going to do whatever you're doing until the cops show up and bust everything up, because it's almost like the visual of seeing the system crack down on it is part of what will hopefully tug at people's hearts and minds.
And the whole reason back then for getting arrested was not just to take responsibility, to say, hey, we really mean this and we're going to take responsibility. It was to take it to trial, because they knew that both the arrest and the trial would get lots of publicity. And at the trial, they would get to say a lot of things that are on their mind. Like they say in the film, they were putting the war on trial. Another action was putting the FBI on trial. They were able to get things off their chest and into the public record in a way that I don't think people can really do today, or I don't think they can try to do it, but I'm not so sure it holds as much weight as it did 45 years ago.
Did you see any sense to the sort of opposition? Like, was there anything that didn't really make it into the movie that would have sort of humanized the other side at all?
We did try to put in most of what we had. I can't think of anything that we left out, but we have the prosecutor for the Baltimore Four and the Catonsville Nine. We have the retired FBI agents who tried to shut down a few other actions. Like, I really wanted to make sure that we had the opposing view in there, because I hate watching a documentary and it only tells one side. And if it's not my side and I don't hear my side represented, I feel like, oh, they didn't get everything that they should have. but it
It
was
also shows a certain insecurity about your idea.
right. It's propaganda.
You start to realize, wait, this person is avoiding mentioning anything that might chip away at their case.
Right, and we wanted to put as much of that, not as much of that as possible, because there wouldn't have been enough room for everything else we wanted. But we put as much as we had. I don't think there was much that we left out that we had, and it wasn't really easy to find. I mean, Joe found the people that are in the film, but we had put the word out. Like when we did our Kickstarter campaign, WBAL did a story on us and put it on their website. And part of the story was, hey, if anybody would like to talk about this, the Catonsville 9, get in contact with us because we'd like to talk to you and maybe put you in the film. And I don't think we got anybody contacting us from that story, but there were comments left on that page on the WBAL site wishing Joe and I death for shining a light on the Catonsville 9. And I saw, as the Maryland Film Festival was coming up and people were posting about the film on Facebook, I saw friends of friends leaving comments about, these people are cowards, the true heroes are the troops, and, we shouldn't be glorifying these cowards. And I wish those people would have come forward so we could have put them in the film, because that's an interesting, I don't agree with these people. For one thing, I don't think what they did is cowardly. I think it's pretty brave to break into a draft board and risk jail time.
Yeah.
And second, a lot of the people that did this had already done their time in the military. It wasn't like they were anti-military or anti-soldiers. And it wasn't like they were trying to get out of the draft. They were too old to be drafted, but they had already been in it. And some of them had fought in wars.
How important do you think it is that people sort of be politically aligned with the movie in order to see it and enjoy it?
I'd like to hope that they don't have to be politically aligned with it. I have some relatives who I know disagree with me politically. I'm anxious for them to see it because I'd like to hear what they have to say. So far, I can only think of one person that I've talked to after a screening who kind of gave me the hint that he's more leaning to the left or leaning to the right. Sorry, and he loved it. He found it very moving, and I'm anxious to see what more religious people feel like because there is discussion of religion in it and how the religion is part of what made these people decide to do what they did. So yeah, I'm hoping to hear what the audiences that are harder for us to reach, because they're not the kind of audiences that go to film festivals, and that's where we're screening the film.
Were there any movies at the Maryland Film Festival this last weekend that really stood out to you? Anything that just blew you away or that you really loved to see?
I loved Zero Charisma. Just a very funny.
I really wanted to make it down for that one, but I couldn't. But it looked great.
I loved it. Was so clever and so original, and I love that the filmmakers said they made it on a mumblecore budget, which was.
But
just
people are enunciating, right?
Right.
Okay.
It was just a great way to put it because they did so much with so little. I saw Good Old Frida, documentary about the Beatles' secretary.
Yeah,
it was really interesting. I Am Divine, the documentary about Divine.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. I thought they did a great job. Divine, you don't get much more of a colorful character than Divine. And that film did a great job of explaining who Divine was. I saw Pit Stop, which I really enjoyed. Very good film. As was White Reindeer, which I not only gave money to their fundraising campaign, I'm also an extra in it. So there's a nice shot of me in a strip club. But I loved the film. It was a very odd Christmas movie.
Okay.
Certainly not necessarily uplifting, but a lot of fun nevertheless. I love that filmmaker's previous work, Zach Clark and Melody Sisk, his producer, who tends to also be in his films. I just like their sensibility. They have a dry sense of humor that is almost scary. So I was really looking forward to seeing that, and it definitely it was worth the wait.
Did you see Willow Creek?
I did.
What did you think of Willow Creek?
I was mixed on it.
Yeah.
Bobcat's intros and Q&As.
No, his Q&A was great.
Even if you don't like the film, it's worth going to the screening just for the Q&A, because he's and I love having him at the festival.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy. He's so friendly and
the fact that he seems to notice something about the Maryland Film Festival that's kind of unique.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Baltimore's different. I mean, I go to a lot of other festivals, and yeah, Q&As can get really boring and usually last a little longer than they should. And you don't always have John Waters sitting in the audience. In fact, you rarely have John Waters sitting in the audience asking a question, and you don't always have a Bobcat Goldthwait answering the questions. Yeah. And so that's one experience that Maryland has been able to provide over and over again for several years now that most festivals don't have.
You were program manager for 8 years?
9 festivals.
9 festivals, wow.
And a lot of the things about the festival like Dan Krovich and I, Dan was the other programmer for 6 of those years. Like, there are things that we created that shaped the festival that are still being done. That's kind of heartwarming to feel like, we made a little difference in this festival. But the fact that the filmmakers come and they have a great time, and then they go to other festivals and they're telling other filmmakers, if you want a really good time, get into the Maryland Film Festival. And I've had filmmakers tell me that without even knowing that I'm from Maryland and that I had worked for the festival. And when I hear stuff like that, it's like, yeah, cool. We're doing something right here. And now I get to attend the festival as a filmmaker and have that good time. I don't get to stay in the hotel where all the parties are, but but I hear about them and it sounds like great parties. I just went to the Nashville Film Festival, which is one of the best organized and best programmed festivals I've ever been to. But the problem was I was there for 5 days and I basically saw the hotel and the theater and I'm in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I should be seeing more of Nashville. I mean, I'm not complaining because I saw some great films and I had a great time, but it's true. Like, when you go to a town, like, you're not just going to watch films, you're going to that town and you need to experience that town. And I know at Maryland, I don't know if we still do it, but Cal Ripken used to give us a whole bunch of tickets to Orioles games, I think in his private box. And the filmmakers would get to go have that experience. And John Waters would take a van load of filmmakers on a bar crawl, to some of his favorite dives. You're only going to get to do that in Baltimore.
Yeah.
You can go to other film festivals and they might have something similar to that, but it's not going to be Cal Ripken and it's not going to be John Waters. So, yeah, I wish I could go on those trips. I haven't done either of them yet, but they sound like fun. If anyone's interested in the film, go to our website, www.hitandstay.com. You can also like us on Facebook, and that's how you can find out if we're going to screen in your town. And if you want us to screen in your town, find who books films in your town. If there's a film festival, or if there's an independent art house or student group or whatever, approach them, tell them about the film, and have them get in touch with us.
Thanks, Giz.
Thanks for having me.
Here they come again.
And wasn't that great? I should
insightful.
Yeah, full disclosure. Steve and Ronald didn't just hear it. We just took a few second pause from when I said we're about to listen to the clip. But I'm sure Ronald.
But I will
Steve,
surely download this on Friday and listen
Absolutely.
to it.
I'm sure you guys will enjoy the interview with Skiz when you hear it. But yeah, that was all about Hit and Stay.
Cool.
The next film that we saw at the festival this year, Ron and I were actually in attendance later that night that John saw Hit and Stay, was Joe Swanberg's new film, Drinking Buddies, which premiered this year at the South by Southwest Festival not even 2 months ago. So again, something really fresh, a movie that hasn't been seen by a lot of people and has gotten pretty good feedback, pretty good reviews. It's been picked up by Magnolia Pictures, who also distributed VHS, which was a film that he was at the festival for last year. He did a Q&A. But the film itself, actually, I think is probably one of his most accessible films. I mean, like, he's a part of that whole mumblecore shift, which I don't know that I could say I'm a huge fan of, but I don't know that I don't know that I dislike it either. Like some of the movies, like Hand Takes the Stairs, I remember he was at the festival with, and I was like, on. But I definitely, personally, I know that I'm more a fan of a little more mainstream type of indie films, a little more accessible things maybe that aren't so, I guess, out there or so independent, that they carry that badge of super hip or whatever you want to call it. But
well, it's kind of fun. I mean, that's one thing that film festivals are good at. They don't have to all be movies you can only see at a film festival.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's just a small film.
Totally. And that's kind of where I'm going. I felt like Drinking Buddies was that. And I think, this is a movie that, let's see, Jake Johnson is in, who most people would probably know as Nick from New Girl, the comedy with Zooey Deschanel. Olivia Wilde is also in the film. Anna Kendrick and
Ron
Ron Livingston, correct.
Office Space. Ty West, the director.
Yeah, your boy's in it, John.
How was he? I wanted to ask.
Yeah, see,
He's okay.
For his role, he's supposed to be a dick.
Did you tell him? Did you tell him that we're not on speaking terms anymore?
Like, you got to talk to John. He's really
Yeah.
upset with the last couple of things you've done.
Don't do any more anthologies.
I gave your number. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I actually love Drinking Buddies. I thought it was great. The crowd was really into it. It's a really cool film because it examines. You basically have these two couples. You know, you have Jake Johnson and Anna Kendrick are a couple who basically they're engaged. You kind of find out throughout the film. You know, they've been engaged for a while, but that he works at a local brewery with Olivia Wilde. And you know they're really close friends. You know, they're friends that you know that there probably could be something more, where they're just so comfortable around one another. They're so like, I want to say air quotes, flirtatious. You know, I think it's just they're so naturally just friends. You know, like you know, but you know that there could be something more. And I think that's what the movie is about. You know, it's about acknowledging, you know, when there's something more than a friendship, especially in a situation where he's engaged to somebody who is also a pretty great person.
Yeah.
For most in most cases. There's something that happens in the movie that makes you kind of question some of that, but
it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, mostly because, like, you know, you get to that point where you want to settle down with somebody, and then you have a friend that is attractive, hilarious, you get along with them, you can joke around with them, and, you know, just kind of figuring out what's more important, like the dynamic of your friendship, maybe turning it into something else. Can two attractive people function with each other and be friends and not have it
when there is an attraction
between them, and have it leak into kind of weirdness, and it's done in a way that I hadn't seen before in a movie, honestly, or hadn't seen done this well.
Yeah, because it doesn't sugarcoat a lot of it. You know, it doesn't wrap it up in a nice little bow either. You know, in the way that the film, you know, the way the movie ends, but it kind of forces it upon the two characters in the course of basically a weekend when they're left alone. Yeah. And you know, they're helping one another out with a move and things like that, and things just kind of escalate. But really well done. I mean, I think absolutely, in my opinion, his best movie. I mean, I think. Yeah. You know, in the Q&A, we weren't able to get any footage of the Q&A because we were a little further away from the front of the theater. But he was asked that multiple times by people in the audience, you know, just about, you know, was this a conscious effort for you to be, you know, to have more of a mainstream film? Like, is this an evolution that you're going through? And he kind of acknowledged all that and embraced it. He's like, you know, honestly, you know, a cool note that we found out, like, the whole movie is pretty much improv. Yeah. You know, he said he had an outline of, I forget what number he said, it was like 40 pages or it was like 30 or 40 pages of an outline.
And if you know anything about script writing, it's a page a minute. So, like, if he has 40 of those, hour and a half movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of improv.
And he just kind of noted that, like, this was the first movie that, like, he had a crew, and he had like a crew of like 40 people, or, you know, and he usually works with like 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? So it was kind of cool it was interesting to see, because you could feel it watching it. You know, it's a movie that had something behind it. You know, and I don't think he shied away from it at all, which was really cool, because I feel like some people give him shit for the mumblecore thing, and I know you guys are telling me about like the boxing match that he had or the fight he had. Yeah. But I mean, like, I think it's really cool.
Basically a critic, Devin Faraci, who's actually a pretty interesting critic. I mean, he writes, you know, about a wide range of films, and I think writes really intelligently about a lot of things surrounding film. But basically, he has an axe to grind with mumblecore, and I think Joe Swanberg challenged him. I don't think that the critic took on the filmmaker, but the filmmaker took on the critic. Right. And I guess maybe you should just say, let's give the critic credit for doing it, you know,
for showing up,
like for potentially embarrassing himself. And then from what I hear, he got thrashed pretty summarily, but he kept getting up.
He's significantly bigger than him. He's like, Joe's like 6'4".
He's taller, yeah.
He's 6'4", 6'5". So, like, this guy's like 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah, but either way, mumblecore is very controversial in that sense. And I think the one thing that's you know, not having seen the film, the one thing that mumblecore is good for, in my mind, I mean, the one thing that is an interesting part of that genre or that subgenre is that it seems to set you up to capture maybe some kind of real moments. So if you take the kind of story
yeah.
you're talking about, like a romantic comedy or something that could be in that zone of like a mainstream kind of will they or won't they movie, and you add to it that verisimilitude, I think that in and of itself is kind of a fresh thing to see. You know,
Yeah.
a slightly more realistic movie about relationships is always welcome.
Yeah, I guess to give some sort of clarity about what makes this a little more mainstream than the other one is that it had some things that mainstream movies have, like sweeping shots
And explosions,
like wide shots and
cyborgs.
yeah, cyborgs and CGI. But
Some
yeah,
really cool tracking shots,
tracking
like
shots
her
and
riding her
stuff
bike
like that.
down the road.
and that's like
Like,
the complete
one shot
opposite of
was
what
pretty cool.
a lot of mumblecore stuff.
But yeah, what I was getting at was just that I liked hearing him embrace it.
Yeah.
You know, I liked him acknowledging Olivia Wilde worked on this movie, and she works on huge films, and she comes and basically works for nothing.
Jason
On this
Sudeikis was
movie,
in it too.
yeah, Jason Sudeikis has a small role in it. Who is her fiance in real life? A whole other conversation. But I don't know. I thought the movie was great.
That's for Schmovie After Dark.
Yeah, right. I hope it finds it. I know Magnolia is releasing it. They'll do like the video on demand thing later this summer. They mentioned they didn't say a date at our screening, but Olivia Wilde is great in the movie. I mean, I think hands down probably her best. I mean, she hasn't been in anything amazing. I loved her on this TV show called The Black Donnellys that no one ever saw, but like I think is probably her best movie. I mean, she's great in it. She's like that friend that like you have or had, and a lot of guys have had. That's like the friend that's like, almost like your buddy that you feel so close to that you're like, are we just friends? It's like, and it's some really cool awkward moments too that I feel like some people can relate to. But Drinking Buddy, I thought was awesome, very good.
You should see it when you get a chance to. When it goes on video on demand, you should see it.
Now, there's a movie that I really wanted to see, but I know you guys saw and really liked. Download it.
Download it. Download it.
Which everyone who saw it seemed to really dig,
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
one that wasn't even on my radar. Like, I didn't know anything about it before this festival popped up. But then when I realized what it was about, it's basically about the sort of rise and fall and metamorphosis of Napster in the early days of the sort of free downloading craze.
yeah, done by director Alex Winter. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Didn't he do Lost Boys too?
Yeah,
He was in it.
he was
He's in it too?
Yeah,
He
he's
didn't direct
in
it.
it. He didn't direct it. He's
All
one
right.
of the
He
one
didn't
of the
direct
vampires.
either of the Bill and Ted movies. Either.
He did.
No.
No.
What?
No, dude, he's just in them. He's Bill S. Preston.
He may have had a
Oh.
hand in the screenplays. I think that he had a lot. I mean, or at
I
least
thought
maybe
he had something to do
in the
with
years
it.
since.
Yeah.
I think this is what I'm thinking of. Is that in the years since he's been a driving force behind efforts to get another movie going.
That's
but
what
yeah,
it is. Yeah, but this movie was basically about the 2008 through almost present day, and
You mean 98?
98. I'm so sorry, 98. It's weird to say 98 now, and being in 2000.
I agree.
So
I get
weird.
caught
I'm
up with
sorry.
that sometimes.
it
Starts
sounds
in
so
98.
long ago.
It
doesn't
does.
It
It's a
freaks
long
me
time.
out watching that movie and seeing like the dates on the screen and
Yeah.
being like, oh my god, like I'm totally
Well,
in school watching this or something. It's like fuck.
it
I'm
just
old.
talks about how how Napster came to be, kind of the whole situation where a couple people met in the IRC chat room, and if you used IRC as a younger person, that was pretty much the way that you got files and chatted with people. These were chat rooms that you kind of had to talk about culture and life, and a couple people met and started Napster. The thing that's really interesting too is how watching this is very different than watching something from 50 years ago, because this is most of our lives. If you're pretty much a computer user around this time and pretty knowledgeable, most of you were using Napster at that time. Mm-hmm. And to kind of see how it became what it was, and how huge it came, and the culture that surrounded it, and how the culture, how it changed the way we deal with music now. How people basically refuse to pay for music now as a result of this sort of floodgate opening, and what it did to the industry, how it affects it, how it will affect it in the future, almost forever. It's like the shot
it's
heard
true.
around the world.
It's
Like,
true that it has changed the way that people view just the idea of paying for music.
Yeah.
It's like that now. It's almost like a choice you make.
for anything now. Anything that you can't, like the tangible things you can get now. Like you can get a car. Like you can't replicate that. You can't bootleg that. But anything else,
Three-dimensional printers, man.
right? 3D printers are coming along. But
I call them three-dimensional.
3-dimensional.
Yeah, I don't like abbreviations.
Right. I think I'm gonna try to 3D print a lady.
Olivia
A
Wilde.
lady.
Olivia Wilde.
I think that was called Weird Science.
Yeah, get up with it. Lon.
But
I'm laying down money right now that the remake of Weird Science involves some kind of 3D printing reference. Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
because they're working on it now.
I think that's good money.
You know, it's going to be
goodness.
topical.
Yeah. I don't know. Just to add to what Ronald said, I definitely was really excited for this film, and not that it has anything to do with Zero Dark 30, but I had a feeling when I left the movie with this kind of what Ronald was just alluding to, of watching something that took place very recently to me, you know, and having reference points that I knew what was going on in my life when that was happening, and how it affected me, you know, and how it affected my friends and whatever. And it was really interesting to watch that because I mean, I was super into Napster and IRC, and I mean every offshoot of Napster that came once they got shut down. And the cool thing about this movie,
I had a desk job where not much was expected of me, and we had a T1. So
Yeah, that was one connection.
I was pretty friendly
Tearing
with
it
Napster,
up.
You were
too.
that guy that I'd see a song and I'm like, T1, yes.
that.
I'm getting it in 2 seconds.
No, I was that guy too who had spent years like hunting down certain records in record shops and finding out you can special order this, but it's going to take us 8 weeks to get it or something like that. And so then, like I was fascinated with that aspect of Napster when it hit. So to me, yeah, that period, even though I still try to pay for music whenever I can, there are still those things that like, you just want to check it out. I don't know. It's hard to remember that there was a time before that when you had to sort of go to the record store and hope that they had like a listening station,
Yeah.
The culture of how you consume music. It's like music became more worthless, but also more ubiquitous because of Napster,
It's kind of unfortunate. I mean, and the like, I guess something recent that happened. Daft Punk's album leaked already, and it comes out in a week or so, 2 weeks or so, and it's just weird to see how that stuff circulates. It gets in one place, it multiplies. I see 50 links for it now. It's insane that just the fact that something can kind of drop on the internet and then multiply in minutes. Be distributed through Twitter, be distributed through Facebook.
well, now it's like it's blown apart. But I mean, and actually, that's watching the film. That's really what was probably the start of the downfall of Napster. Which you talk about a leak. It was when the song from, I think it was from one of the Mission Impossible movies, from the Metallica song leaked. It wasn't even out yet. There was like a radio cut of it.
Is that why Lars Ulrich was always so pissed off?
Yeah, I
about
think
Napster?
so.
That was the beginnings of that relationship.
That's what put Napster on the radar. You know what I mean? But the movie itself is incredible. It was produced by, it was produced in conjunction with VH1 Rock Docs, and I was able to get a lot of footage from the Q&A, and I know John's going to drop some of this in post production. But he talked a lot. Alex Winter talked a lot about the relationship with VH1, the budget that they gave him, which I think he said was like just under $1 million, and that this movie basically started over 10 years ago.
Thank you. Very important. Well, I mean, it's really important. The movie, obviously can't answer all of the questions about piracy and streaming. It's really an invitation to go get educated. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I mean, it's really complicated what's going on, and it's kind of incumbent upon all of us to understand what's going on. That goes for the record industry, the movie industry, the tech industry, the entrepreneurs, you, me. I just showed this to a bunch of high school kids at the festival in Toronto, and, I was like, who downloads? And they all raised their hand. I got kids, they all download. So, I think it's important to understand we all download. So does that make us pirates? The reality of it is that streaming isn't piracy. Streaming is actually the technology by which we all get our media now and have for quite some time, and that's the reality in which we are living, right? So we need to understand how the mechanics of that work, because it's no longer a question of when, it's a question of how. And for me, the how is how do we pay the artists? I really don't care about the rest of it. The monetizing companies will figure out how to monetize. The question is, how do we have this new wave of technology that doesn't leave artists out in the cold? I think it's a low-budget doc. I pitched this to VH1. That's the Rock Docs division. There are amazing people, and paid for it, and now we're selling it out to other parties for distribution. But it was under $1 million. And it was important for me, because this was my first documentary, this might sound really counterintuitive, to not use a documentary editor. I wanted an editor that cut a lot of really great narrative, because the Napster story is kind of inherently classical as a narrative, and I really wanted it to feel and run like a narrative. So Jacob Craycroft, who cut this, cut Prairie Home Companion for Bob Altman. He cut a lot of great narrative movies and that I really liked. And we had fun because neither of us had the slightest idea what we were doing. It was awesome. Like, do you know how to do that? No. Do you know? No. All right, let's go. Let's have fun. Yeah.
You've mentioned it a couple times, but what is the plan in terms of release for this? Like, what way? How can people see this after this?
It's obviously digital was of primary importance to me. Festival run was very important, so we're doing a festival run now. We're going to do a very small theatrical release that is primarily to lead us into a digital release that will be iTunes and cable VOD. And then we made a deal with a partner that is going to be taking this thing very wide in the streaming space in September, more around when schools are coming back, because the sort of educational component is an important one, I think, for me. So, and that's a really great deal. I was really happy with their great partners, and it will be a very broad streaming release that will have hopefully a lot of marketing push behind it. I was a big Napster user. I was big in technology, as a layman. So for me, Napster was this explosive social community. That was the first thing that I responded to with it, because it was dial-up age, everything was slow, IRC and BBSs and news groups, various forms of social community online in those days were broken pains in the butt. And then suddenly Napster, I had friends in Finland, Japan, Russia, Germany, and we were like in each other's hard drives in real time. It's really hard to describe that experience. There's nothing like it today. Nothing like Napster exists anymore. It's gone. So from a community standpoint, I was really blown away, and I met Fanning and talked to him about Napster from that perspective. So we hit it off because that turned out to really be his vision for it. And he was just happy to talk to someone who didn't want to talk about how I could get the Madonna album, 2 weeks before it came out. So I really came at it from the standpoint of seeing it as a huge cultural and youth revolt at that time. And that was my way into the story. It was a youth revolt story. Once I met Fanning and realized how extraordinary he was, I sort of made it more about his experience. My narrative is all about Fanning's experience through this process. The movie is sort of almost back to my original vision, which is the more global socio-political aspects. The short answer is no, there's no great model for paying artists that exists yet, in my opinion. In some ways we're going backwards and we're getting worse than the ugliest days of the record industry at their worst. In the digital space. In other words, the new bosses are in some ways in danger of being much worse than the old bosses, right? That's what scares me about where we're headed. For all kinds of artists, people like me, musicians, all kinds of people, like this gentleman was talking about, there is a lot of destruction in the wake of these evolutionary changes, right? That being said, I think that there's a lot of people trying to figure out good ways to go forward. And I'm kind of Pollyanna-ish. I think that we're going to live in a new world much like today's world. There's going to be good stuff and bad stuff. There's going to be artists getting screwed, and there's going to be artists figuring out how to really utilize these new technologies. I think the Radioheads of the world are the most rarefied. I don't think that's a model that's sustainable for most artists. I feel the same way about, certain artists, like Amanda Palmer, who I think are brilliant and are doing amazing things, but it's really idiosyncratic to succeed on that level, and it's almost, not disingenuous, I think those people are really great artists, but I think it's a misnomer to assume that the vast majority of people could take on a Radiohead or Amanda Palmer model and make 30 cents, much less $2 million. So I think that end of sort of self-crowd source funding is extremely rarefied and will always be very rarefied and will mostly be failure and very seldomly will be success. I think we have to find a way to monetize going forward that works for your average working musician, filmmaker, writer, or whatever. Yes, have I stunned you into silence? My job is done.
Well,
Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Some really interesting stuff comes out of this film that I never knew, that I find completely incredible. Like, basically that most of the guys that worked on the servers and the coding for Napster, when Napster was shutting down or about to get shut down in the 2001, 2002 area, had jumped ship, and Apple had basically like hired a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And then a lot of these guys were involved in writing iTunes, being a part of what came out in 2001, 2002 as iTunes. And it's incredible.
That's crazy too, to think that was, just a little over a decade ago.
Right.
I mean, it's like you can make it seem like a long time, but you can also make it seem like it was just yesterday. And it's hard to believe that iTunes, 2002 sounds pretty recent, even though it's 11 years ago. But yeah, that's crazy to think that there was a time when that was. And do you remember how sort of strange it seemed at first that there was this application? Like I remember using it to like digitize my CDs. I remember using it to convert things into MP3 for my enjoyment. I don't know when I got an iPod, but that's just crazy to think that was just a little over 10 years ago. That was not even, you didn't even wish you could carry your whole collection on your hip. You just kind of dealt with what you had.
Yeah, you lug those CDs around in the car.
Mm-hmm.
if you even had a CD player in your car, and if you went on a trip, you'd have to take. It's a weird thing too to think about. I had a friend that was a DJ when I was in high school, and he would have to lug crate after crate after crate. He'd have to have crates in the back seat, crates in the front, crates in the trunk. Now he just carries around a hard drive and his MacBook Pro, and that's it. It's a scary thing, man.
Yeah, it's an incredible film. I mean, a must-see. I know that they said that they're going to be distributing it in a small theatrical run, video on demand, and then in the late summer, early fall, it's going to be available. He wasn't able to say what streaming service, but there's going to be, he said, one of the larger streaming services. So,
Probably
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, whatever. I know they partnered with AOL.
Not LimeWire?
Not LimeWire.
That's going to do really well on Netflix.
One of the things, I know they're partnered with AOL in terms of the distributions. I don't know if there's something that AOL is working into it or what, but essential viewing for anybody of our generation. I mean, even if you're before or after it, it's amazing perspective. Listening to Sean Parker and Sean Fanning talk about it today, in present day. Parker being the guy, the business guy, the guy that got the money. Most people know him from his involvement with like Facebook and Justin Timberlake, portraying him in the Social Network.
He's done so much. It's kind of scary.
It's insane. He's worked with Spotify, with Airtime, with...
He brought Spotify to America, which is insane. He was the one that went to all of the record labels and basically convinced them to distribute the music, license the music, which is strange because I remember when that first happened, when there was like basically a sheet on the Spotify UK site, like, it's coming, it might come to America, let us know if you want it. This is what it does. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was so weird. So I would use the UK version. I did a VPN to use it, and it's an incredible service. But that we also talked about that. Alex also talked about the idea that like streaming it is kind of a weird thing too. Like, it's, people kind of don't get any profit from it, essentially, like in a lot of ways.
What you said about Spotify with Sean Parker is like a really important point, because like he was like kind of the money guy, the business guy, the guy that got it going. But listening to Sean Fanning speak is just, I mean, it kind of blew me away. Like, the entire movie, he's so well spoken, explaining what his vision was, and whether, you say, well, was that initially your vision, or was that the vision like when shit went bad, and you were basically maybe backtracking, because it all went to hell when Sean Parker used the word pirated in an email, an inter-office email, and, basically was forced out of the company. But listening to Sean Fanning talk, like, he was the guy with the idea. He was the software code. He's the one that made Napster and put it out there initially. And the whole movie, you're just watching him, and he's like kind of looking off. You know what I mean? Like, you know those scenes like where he's kind of dazed. Like, as he's telling Alex Winter and us as an audience about this, you can see him recounting it all and just wondering, how did it not work?
Did you notice how many scenes he like teared up? They're like 4 or 5 scenes where he's like almost crying.
He's genuinely just still confused. Like, you can tell. Like, I was reading a review, like Max Weiss, one of the local, she works for Baltimore Magazine here in Baltimore. Her review, the last line of her review says something about, you can't help but watch this and feel like Sean Fanning feels like, how this, I think she said, like, this digital horizon that should have belonged to him. this whole thing he's talking about, like music and iTunes and just how much music has changed now. And he's just like, I was at the front of this and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, how did it not work? It was shocking. Like one of the last scenes of the movie is him. It's a close up of him on a couch with all the guys from the board of Napster, and they're talking and they're joking and they're all laughing because now they can look back and laugh, and they're all millionaires still. And as is Sean Fanning, but he's just got his hand on his head and he's just looking off. He's like, you can see him looking around the room like he's doing math in his head or something. Like it's weird. It was.
He's writing code, Steve.
Did they tell you? Did
the
they
next
tell you
great
about the
revolution.
person they cut out of the scenes, the talking scenes?
No.
Somebody from Apple.
Oh, really?
Used to work for.
Oh, he's in some of the earlier scenes too.
Yeah,
I think.
like apparently they had like there's like a roundtable discussion.
Yeah.
And they're cutting him out of the scene. I don't know the guy's name, but essentially, Apple said to him, "You can either be in this documentary, or you cannot be an Apple employee."
Yeah.
And he's like,
that.
"Okay." I think I'll still work for Apple.
And there's some guys earlier in the movie that like worked for Apple after Napster, but no longer work for Apple. So like they're all in.
Yeah,
it.
they're
I mean,
all in it.
It's just great. He is just so well versed in this subject.
Smart guy.
He said they had hundreds and like over 200s of shot footage and over 200. Hours of shot footage and 200 hours of archived footage from MTV and VH1 that they went through. It's just, it's an experience, man. I can't wait to see it again. I want my friends to see it. This was a great festival, so you're going to hear some great things.
Yeah.
But Downloaded, I think I really took the most away from personally because, like I said, I can relate so much to it. And my life is music as an artist. My life is technology as what I work in, and just watching a movie about both, it just, it hit me. And it's just like, to know that I won't say I was a part of that revolution, but I had a part in it as a social member.
I think you were.
The fact that I know at one point I may have shared my hard drive with you through Napster or you. You know what I mean? That's what made Napster what it was. It went from hundreds of people to hundreds of millions of people using it. And I know I was one of them. And it was cool to just to see the back end of it and all these record executives talking. And it's just some of it's laughable, some of it's really interesting, and some of it's just straight up entertaining. So Downloaded was great.
Downloaded. Coming soon.
Yeah.
See,
Were there any audio issues at the screening of Downloaded?
Not of Downloaded.
Not of Downloaded.
I would have been. Oh God.
Why did
don't
I
get me
ask that
started.
question? What made
I like
me
that
ask that
segue.
question?
You're so smart,
I know.
John.
I'm just trying to move things along.
there were some audio issues in another movie.
What movie was that, Ronald?
V/.
Hold on, I'm writing this down. Spell it out for me.
V/
All right.
H/
Okay.
S.
Okay. Wait.
Space.
Okay. Got it.
2.
VHS 2. I saw VHS 1. There's a VHS 2.
Heck
They
yeah,
did
there
it.
is.
They did it.
They didn't want to do like VHS, TOO. Like Teen Wolf 2.
That would have been so much better.
It would have been.
Oh, missed opportunity.
But yeah, what we were referring to is the about 5 minutes into the movie, and then for the next 10 or 15 minutes at least, the audio just completely dropped out, or not completely dropped out, but the audio was like garbled, and it's what it sounded like to me was like one of the 3 or 4 channels was just completely gone because like the background noise and a lot of the sound effects was really clear.
It's like when you're listening to something on the headphones and you pull it out slightly.
Yeah, right.
And it's on one of the rings, and you can hear background noise.
Yeah, or if you've got one earbud in, then you can only hear half the stereo.
It sounded pretty terrible. So that took away from the first.
Yeah, and it took me a minute. The way the segment, like these are anthology movies, and the whole like the VHS movies are, and the whole premise is that they're found footage. And as we said before about VHS, the first one, that the short subject film is maybe a better use for found footage because you don't have to justify the concept of filming for as long.
Found footage on tape in HD though. So
yeah. Well, no, that's not even.
Sense
if you go back to our previous episode about VHS, all the same problems existed as that in that sense.
But this movie looked much better.
This movie was an improvement in a lot of ways, but
production wise.
But yeah, but it was into the first segment of it that the audio dropped out, or the audio problems began, and I remember not being able to tell, because it's a weird, like the premise of it is that a guy's got a camera in his eye, and so you could believe that maybe they were doing some unusual audio tricks, but then after a few minutes you can just tell that you're missing dialogue.
Yeah.
I don't think we missed any particularly great dialogue, and I was still able to tell what was going on, but I can only imagine that any of the people associated with the film that were in attendance were pretty frustrated with that. What'd you think of VHS 2, Steve?
Well, I was very upset about the sound problems. I actually went outside and raised some hell. And then I sat at the back of the theater because that was the one speaker in the theater
We
that
were
was
wondering
working.
where you were.
Yeah, because I was like walking around the theater trying to find a speaker that was working, and it was in the back left, so that's where we sat. But
Sadly, the one filmmaker that was in attendance from the movie, the one director, was
God.
Edward Sanchez. Eduardo Sanchez?
Yeah,
Eduardo Sanchez. And his segment was almost completely ruined. But I mean, again, I won't say the segment was ruined. I just mean the audio was bad through, like, it was in the last minute of his that they got the audio back on.
Yeah.
it would be fair enough to say that I won't. Yeah, it didn't ruin it, but it ruined it.
Yeah.
Like
It soured it.
A filmmaker is in the theater
Right.
for a Q&A following the screening, and the sound goes out. It was out for like a good 20-some minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was in the entirety of pretty much of his short in the film. And I mean, I just can't believe it was absolutely ridiculous how it stayed out so long. But I mean, that was standing. VHS 2 was a worlds of improvement for VHS 1 personally. I didn't hate VHS, the original. I did really like some of the segments, but as a whole, it was kind of like I may watch it in passing. You know, I have it now that it's out. Just as I like to just throw in a horror movie every once in a while and watch it.
As a horror fan, there were things about VHS that, even without really liking the overall effect of the movie that much, I could see myself watching it with a friend if I knew they hadn't seen it, just to kind of see what they think of it.
That's exactly what I've done in the past year. I've watched it with a couple of people like that. I thought the VHS 2 was a lot better. You know, the wraparound, the idea is that...
the first few minutes of the wraparound were cool.
Yeah.
Once they got into that house...
You're basically into the same wraparound.
But it was so unexplained. Like, without, again, we don't even want to explain the plot well enough to spoil the plot of the wraparound. But there is a moment where a man finds his girlfriend seemingly dead and covered with blood, and he looks over and, like, through his emotions, he sees that someone has written "watch" in blood on a VHS tape, and so he kind of goes like, oh, all right, I guess I'll watch this. It's just like I can't imagine at any point, to a screenwriter, to a director, to a producer, to an actor, the the content of that scene makes any sense. The notion of, oh, you just found someone dead, you care about her, you're very upset. Oh, a video, I'll watch this.
But also, like, the person that they saw in the video that's like moving the story along.
Yeah, that part was really underdeveloped.
What is he? He's just talking. He's talking about these tapes that he's acquired.
Yeah, well, we don't know if we missed something important early. That is
Right.
one
Oh,
part
that's
early where we
true.
didn't
Yeah,
understand
we
what he
may have-
said.
yeah,
But I don't think it would have made sense, the fact that there's something that seems like it really should have killed a person, and instead they're now some kind of malevolent being because of it.
Just
So
functioning.
But I think we all agreed, and everyone seemed to agree, that the best segment
yes.
of VHS 2 was the piece by Gareth Evans,
Evans, yeah.
director and writer of Raid Redemption.
called Safe Haven.
It's called Safe Haven, and it was bonkers, I thought.
It was one of those movies.
Batshit crazy.
Yeah.
It upped the ante every couple minutes. It got crazier and crazier and crazier.
And I realized that when I thought back on it, it wasn't really even that it was that scary in the sort of slow build of tension way. It was more just you were thrust into this scene, and you were constantly figuring out what was going on in the scene, and every time you sort of figure out where things are at,
Yeah.
it would then take a turn, and it just got bigger and crazier. And there's a really kind of hokey effect in it that I really like. There's a sort of man in suit kind of moment, but I thought it was so well done when the entrance of that
It reminded
character
me
was
of True
so
Blood for some reason.
was
like,
so in a way, the way it was shot, it was
Yeah.
very, the way, yeah. Well, no, for a second, I don't watch True Blood. I thought you said Natural Born Killers for some reason. That's where my brain went. Don't ask why. But there was something kind of dirty about the way that it was shot and the way it was put together.
very.
It just felt like you didn't want to be in that situation, and it was actually kind of funny too.
Gareth Evans, I mean, I guess for whatever it's worth in this short, he did what he does in pretty much every movie I've seen by him, and some of them are not as good as The Raid Redemption, but
That's the only one I've seen. So.
he's very good at developing characters very quickly, getting something about their personality out really quickly, like they're an asshole, they're really cool, they're funny, very quickly, and kind of moving the story along. That is one of the best things you could possibly ever do in a short film about whatever this thing is developing into. It's a weird environment that they're coming into. It's like a commune, whatever. It's like you don't know what's going on. It's weird. They've heard rumors, and they're trying to document the whole thing. And once they get inside, chaos ensues. Like It really.
I love Ronald's chaos ensues.
Yeah.
We should have a little sound that we
Yeah.
just throw off every episode. Chaos ensues.
Chaos.
But never more appropriate than this.
Yeah, no,
It
this is definitely
really,
one.
it really was one of those movies where you're like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Well, I mean, think about the first 20 minutes of Raid Redemption, though, and how bonkers that was.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, this is like, it definitely, like, I was excited. I didn't particularly care overall for VHS 1, and I was excited primarily about VHS 2 because of Gareth Evans' short, which I, totally lived up to those expectations. I did like in the Q&A afterwards, we also got some audio from that. Eduardo Sanchez, I liked what he said about that it was about 50,000 that they all had to make their movie.
Anybody have any questions?
Why'd you gotta kill the dog?
Jason, the guy who directed that, always gets that question, and it was just, it was actually his dog, his family dog, but he didn't really kill him, man. He didn't really kill him. He actually used was it like an Ewok or was it an Alf doll? It was like an Alf doll to double the dog a lot of times, like to be the most dangerous.
Was the camera actually attached to the dog?
The camera was actually attached to the dog at first, and then he realized that the dog wasn't doing what he wanted him to do, so he got the Alf doll, and then he started playing the dog with the Alf. You can kind of tell, if you've seen it a couple times, like many times that I've seen it, you can kind of tell when the Alf doll comes in because the ears are different, but as a first-time viewer, it's totally seamless. So. We were kind of all producing them at the same time. So we would see stuff, like pictures from Gareth, and we were like, what the fuck is he doing? And then we didn't see it until they sent us rough edits. But we were all pretty much doing it at the same time, except the last one, the Alien one. He did it later, like a month or two later. We actually, around this time last year, we were prepping ours. We shot it, I think, in June or something. But it was all kind of, they all approved the scripts, and then we kind of went off and did them. And then later on, we started seeing everybody's films and, comparing them and stuff. Jamie came up with the idea, and we were, it was going to be shot on GoPros, and we had just shot a Bigfoot movie on GoPros, and we realized that the GoPros are really crappy. And actually, Jason's the Alien one at the end is all shot on GoPros, and at night it falls apart. I mean, it works for that movie, because it's just the way. I think it really adds to the look of it. It makes it look really cool. But we basically did it a day, mostly because it was just the subject matter, and also we realized that the GoPros. This was GoPro 2. This is before the new one came out. They just fell apart at night, so we realized that, and we tried to make it the daytime. But it was mostly just Jamie's idea, a guy riding his bike, and then he runs into this little zombie apocalypse. No, it was basically try to come up with this craziest, stupidest thing you can come up with. And for me, it was we did Blair Witch, and so we're kind of like the grandfathers of this whole thing. And for us, all the filmmakers are 10, 15 years younger than I am, and so for me, it was the most important thing was just not getting left behind, not making the shittiest segment in the movie. So I was like, okay, we're only gonna do it if the idea is good. And then Jamie wrote this treatment, and he sent it to everybody. And Greg and I, the co-director of ours, we fell in love with it immediately, and we were like, yeah, let's do it. It's just a lot of fun. Probably, yeah, there's going to be a third one, and I don't think I'm involved now. Their whole thing is that they make them really cheap, and to make the movies, all of us have to call in favors and make a lot of people work for free, and we work for free, and we probably wouldn't be able to do it again. So I think they kind of get new filmmakers, and also just getting new energy and getting new ideas. And, see where they take the third one. So, I think they gave everybody $50,000, and then you see how much $60,000 buys you in Indonesia compared to. I mean, that movie would have cost $1.5 million here. Anyway, thanks for coming. coming out. I know it's late. Like, oh.
In so many, but you're talking about the budget. I mean, you look at that, and there's no time that you'd think that costs $50,000.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to peg what's about to happen or what's going on or what exactly they're actually trying to uncover. You get the idea of what they're trying to uncover, but then you start to see these additional layers like kind of come off, and then you're like, well, maybe it's more than that, or maybe it's this. They're gonna do that. You start to kind of think about it. But really, nothing that you think is what happens.
Yeah.
You're not mentally prepared for it.
It goes. I mean, yeah, it's awesome.
And it goes from being creepy to being funny to being disgusting. I mean, and there's a couple of there's one scene in there with a pregnant woman or a woman who seemingly was pregnant before what has happened to her. That I just didn't. It's one of those situations where someone's going into a room and you just are going, no, I don't want to. Don't go in there.
Who would ever go in there?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like there is definitely the "don't go in there" kind of horror movie reaction, and then there's the "oh no, don't go in. What are you doing? Don't pull back the sheet. Don't look at what's under the sheet." I thought that was really well played, and even the gross and kind of tense part of that was kind of funny because within a few minutes you can just tell, like I don't like what you were saying. I don't know what to expect from this, and so yeah, in that sense, genuinely surprising. And actually, the plot of that, if someone had made a feature out of that plot, it would have been a good feature too. I mean, they would have had to fill in more character stuff, but there was definitely enough story in that segment to be a feature.
Totally.
Yeah. He's a big fan of headshots. I've noticed that in all of his movies. He loves to see people get shot in the head. So I don't know what it is. Like, but it added.
I thought you meant like headshots. Like he's a big fan of those 8x10 glossies that actors send
Model
out.
headshots.
Good one.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's also really cool that like he chooses these odd people to kind of focus on. All of his movies involve like a very small man.
Oh yeah, there's a character named Father in this that's just great. I mean, talk about some of the best comic moments come from.
Yeah.
From,
egomaniac. Super crazy.
Yeah, I mean, overall,
Twitchy.
I mean, that's the standout. We've all agreed that.
Yeah.
The Eduardo Sanchez short is basically, a guy's running through a park with a GoPro camera on his head or his helmet or his hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he basically runs into like a zombie apocalypse. And it's kind of a cool take because, you kind of see him as a victim at first, and then he kind of turns into a zombie.
Well, it actually did something that I'm surprised more zombie movies haven't done with the glut of movies, which I guess we saw Warm Bodies this year, but it did an interesting job of just the sort of, it used the found footage, the fact that we basically have someone turning into a zombie who has a camera attached to their head. We really got a sort of zombie's point of view of becoming a zombie and how people react to him then. That part was, I mean, I thought that there was some cleverness to that segment for sure. I really do wonder if maybe we missed some funny character bits based on the fact that we weren't hearing any dialogue, but
I think we probably did.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, it was kind of, one of our coworkers from our days at Apple. He was in there as an extra, Scott McCubbin.
Yeah, Scott.
And
Did you see him in it?
I did.
Scott, you didn't see him?
Yeah.
He was the only big bald guy with his entrails hanging out.
That was him? No,
That means Ronald doesn't know who we're talking about.
No.
He's like, what? Oh, wait. Oh, that was him. Got it.
It started off, the sound thing was so
Off-putting
that I didn't even think about that. I didn't even know what segment he was in, so I didn't think look for Scott.
Right.
I was just like, I think we were all kind of boiling angry at that point where it was just like, oh.
Well, I mean, with Scott, when I met Scott and he was staggering around with his entrails hanging out, I thought, this guy really should get some acting work in a zombie
He's
film.
got to find somebody looking for a zombie.
That's a look that really only works in one kind of movie.
That makes sense. That was, okay.
Yeah, but that one is kind of fun. It's just, I guess it's more fun of one of the more fun of the shorts.
I would say it and the last one work in the sense that a short subject, there's a lower investment and you're just kind of there to enjoy the jolts that they give you. And I think both those segments had moments. That last segment with the the prankster kids.
Yeah.
I thought that had some really nice moments.
That actually was my second favorite one. I mean, I actually really enjoyed that one. The reason I still think that Safe Haven was probably my favorite one is because it was just so out there. I mean, the one, we're talking about the last one. It's called Slumber Party Alien Abduction.
And who directed that one?
I think his name is Eisner. It's
that one was really good.
Let me look it up real quick. I have it.
That's
Jason
probably my
Eisner.
second favorite.
Yeah, Jason Eisner.
Definitely mine. There's a moment in that. There's a quick glimpse of something
lake,
under the water.
in the lake, yeah.
That I mean, the movie definitely. Every horror movie maybe has an image that is the image of that movie. I would think that in Safe Haven, there's a moment where that we have a low angle of a guy who's got blood and snot dripping off his face, and there's something behind him. That moment, if you just take the still frame, it's like this describes how fucking crazy this movie is. There's a moment under the water in the last one that was the same way, that where I was like, okay, I enjoyed the little short, but that moment sort of stuck with me.
Yeah.
That one had the most heart, I feel like. It was like, felt like Goonies a little bit.
It did.
Yeah.
Did you ever see The Gate?
Yeah.
It felt like The
Yes.
Gate in Goonies, you know, like, and yeah, it's just, you know, these brothers and their friends and their sister and a boyfriend, like they're at the house for the weekend, parents are gone, playing like fun pranks, really funny pranks on one another.
Yeah.
Audience was totally into it. And then you introduce this like figure in the water, you know, the kid jumping, like as soon as they come out the lake though, they're okay. You're like, well, what was that?
Yeah.
You know, and things kind of
Well, it seems that we saw it, but they
chaos
didn't.
ensues afterwards.
Yeah.
But it's I was just saying, it seems that we saw something that they didn't.
Oh,
And I
totally.
think
Yeah,
that
they had
with
no-
a found footage movie. That's kind of hard to do, but they did a good enough job of that. That you really were going like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And actually, for the rest of that, even for the rest of that that short, I was actually pretty freaked out by it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I'm really into like the whole, I don't know if it was aliens or some sort of humanoid, whatever it was. The way they had them coming out was so creepy to me because there would just be tons of darkness and like there was a lot of bright lights in this short and a lot of loud like boom, you know, kind of like the War of the Worlds
Yeah.
sounding things. And seeing them move like in like stop motion, like it would light up and you'd see them, and it would go dark, and then it would light up and you'd see them in another
Yeah,
position.
that'd be a little closer.
Yeah.
And they'd be a little closer or reaching out for the kid, and their hands had these like long nails. Very creepy stuff. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was really well done. I felt it absolutely reminded me of like the Goonie kind of thing, and even more so the Gate, which I loved as a kid, which is pretty much about the same exact thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the kids are being obnoxious, and then you realize they're just being kids. I mean, a lot of times you see obnoxious kids in movies, and you're waiting to see, well, what's going to be their comeuppance. But then you realize that you just are supposed to see them as a fairly realistic depiction of a bunch of like, looks like 12 to 14-year-olds having a slumber party and the kind of shit they get into. I mean, I found that really
just
believable.
at a bad place at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that dog got some good footage,
Yeah.
some good
That
pranks.
dog got some
In
great
fact,
pranks.
maybe the most poignant movie, if you want to hear the audience, like the sympathies of the audience were definitely with that dog. That's all I'll say.
Oh yeah, that's horrible.
So I'd say if you're a horror fan, I mean, I feel the same way, but only more so about this than VHS One. With VHS One, I said, hey, if you're a horror fan, check it out. This I kind of feel. I feel like this. I would show Safe Haven to almost any film buff that I know.
Yes. Yes.
I feel a lot more confident and comfortable recommending this movie to friends too.
Yeah.
Like I felt very awkward because we all went last year. Rana was with me with a lot of my friends, and like no one liked it. My two friends, Lauren and Brian, that went with us last year that absolutely hated it,
I
has
felt
given
like
me shit all year.
Brian wanted to punch the glass door. That
He
we
wanted
left.
to, yeah, he couldn't get out of the theater fast enough. And what made it worse is that we watched the Q&A with Joe Swanberg last year, which made it even worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've already recommended it to both of them, so hopefully they see it. They probably won't. But point being, I think it's a lot more entertaining. I think the shorts are a lot stronger. Especially like maybe I felt like the first one was probably the weakest for me.
Yeah.
The eye camera thing.
Yeah.
But you know, I think with the zombie thing, a lot of people were into that. They would enjoy Eduardo Sanchez's bit, and Safe Haven and the Slumber Party Alien Abduction, I thought. were
The
both
Eye one
awesome.
felt like the movie The Eye with Jessica.
That's all. Well, I mean, that's pretty much what it was.
I think the wraparound started to bug me, and then the first one I think when the audio went out, it took a while for me to kind of get back into it. But I think had there been no audio problems, I probably would have been, my attitude would have been generally better from the word go. But I was just really glad that the audio was back in full effect by the time the Safe Haven section started.
Yeah,
because
we were all praying for that.
Yeah.
The wraparound to me, like I just feel like I don't even pay
It was
attention to
bad.
them.
Yeah. Well, I
Like the
just feel
first
like,
one and this one, I feel like I acknowledge that they're there, and that's what a lot of people complain about. But, and I mean, the thing is that they kind of treat it, you know, they have a filmmaker that does it. I think Adam Wingard did the wraparound, and I don't know. I just tune out. Like
the very opening I thought was effective, and then when you see that we're getting footage, that's like he's like a private investigator or somebody who's being hired to get footage of things for people, and that was an interesting premise. And then they go into a creepy house, and knowing that's a horror movie, and it's like I was stoked at that moment. They get into that house, and I was down with it, and then immediately it's basically the same setup as the first movie.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And it really lost a lot of my goodwill in that moment, and I started to think, "Oh, what am I doing watching this?"
I would
Well,
rather
there's so many indie movies that aren't that aren't this that I could have gone to see at the festival. But I think that it definitely won me back over. And I think you're right. The general strength of the segments. It's like it's an anthology film. It's low. It's 90 minutes. It expects very little of you, and you'll definitely find something in it if you like horror.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out real quick. There's a short film online called Cargo. A lot of Eduardo Sanchez's section, the zombie through the park thing. There's a short film called Cargo that's online. I think it's on Vimeo. Definitely check it out if you see this film and like his section, or just for a kind of fresh take on a zombie film. Again, kind of told from the point of view of a zombie, but having to do with like a father who is basically caught in the middle of it with a child, and like he gets bit and he has to try to figure out, what am I going to do to save my child, even though I know I'm going to turn into a zombie.
Oh wow!
And not to give it away, but it's a really, really well
Not to give
made
it away,
short.
but he eats the kid.
Yeah. Damn it, John. But really, really awesome short. And any zombie fans. But
I'll check that out.
I watched Eduardo's piece, and we'll throw some of his commentary. I thought he might have referenced this movie because apparently this short was out for a little while, and this VHS2 was shot like in the last year. So I thought maybe they would talk about this, but. It's called Cargo. Definitely check it out. It's an awesome little short.
Cool.
The next movie we saw, I saw David Gordon Green's Prince Avalanche. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it because I was the only one that saw it and I didn't like it. I found it very boring, very slow.
Starring Emil Hirsch and Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Emil Hirsch, Paul Rudd, and that's really it. There's a couple other characters that show up in the film for a moment. One of the characters has a play in what's actually happening, but it's basically like a buddy comedy of guys that really aren't friends, that maybe they should become. I don't know. They're kind of forced into it.
An enemy comedy,
like Cyrus was, where they like there's like a lot of arguing though.
A little bit, yeah, exactly, yeah, and like Paul.
So is David Gordon Green just? I think he just does whatever the hell he wants to do. Yeah.
Like he doesn't work. He works in and out of the system. He like apparently shot this movie without really anybody knowing about it. It's just like. I remember like just reading about it like at, I don't know if it was Sundance or one of the film festivals, like, oh, he has a new movie with Paul Rudd and Emil Hirsch. Yeah. And you think, okay, it's going to probably be cool because it's smaller. It was shot for nothing, and there's some cool ideas in it that I thought work really well, and there are some funny scenes. But overall, it is short, so that was good. It was like an hour and a half, hour and 40. But yeah, not my thing. I think the attention it gets is because of him and probably the parties involved with it. But I don't know. You guys may enjoy it. I just couldn't get into it. I just found it way too slow and not a whole lot of.
You're saying it's kind of shitty, like those movies that we like.
Yeah, I'm saying like you guys like you like the shittier movies, so you might like this one. Yeah, I don't know. Some of the things I felt like they were doing with it, or that it was going to go towards, especially with Paul Rudd's character. You do feel like he has a bit of an awakening throughout the film, and they've referenced like kind of where the title comes from later on in the movie, and that was kind of cool. And I liked seeing that bit of character development. But Emil Hirsch's character, it just felt like a lot of the comedy was forced, like the way the lines were delivered, and it was trying to go for. It almost felt like it was trying to go for like to tap into some of that like Wes Anderson dialogue magic, like how dry some of it is, but it's like totally just. It just comes right off the cuff, And some of this film, it didn't feel like it happened like that, but they were trying to do so.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think that kind of quirky. I mean, I like Wes Anderson's movies, but I think that he's a rare example of someone whose attention to detail is actually so great that even though you can view it as kind of like, well, this is sort of hipster or this is sort of quirky or whatever, you can see the real sincerity behind it, and again, the real artistic control behind it. I think imitating that sometimes kind of puts people at a real disadvantage because that it takes the right actor and the right dialogue, everything for that kind of dry tone to really work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a movie that a lot of critics probably will still like. I mean, because I think they usually kind of give him some love.
Well, plus he's on the downturn because of Your Highness, right? So like,
and what didn't he do The Sitter as well?
He did that too?
Didn't he do The Sitter?
Two shitty movies.
Yeah, The Sitter and Your Highness back to back.
Two shitty movies.
You are welcome. 22 and 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, respectively.
Meh.
And Prince Avalanche currently has a 75, so it's one of his best reviewed films. So I'm on the outskirts here, but I wasn't into it. It wasn't.
That might
for me.
be one review that liked it.
Yeah, it just wasn't my thing. But we'll see what comes out next from him. But the festival was capped off pretty well, I felt.
Yeah.
All three of us were able to get together for our last screening to be a part of Willow Creek.
Which I would say I loved the screening. I loved the experience of the
Yeah, the
screening.
experience was
I don't know
great.
that I think the movie was really that special, but I think that the experience of watching it with this really welcoming crowd, and I don't know, it was just a really good time. I really do think the movie. I mean, I feel like it feels like a horror movie made by somebody that doesn't watch a lot of horror movies, and so therefore there were certain things about it that seemed kind of derivative. But written and directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. Definitely some great Bobcat Goldthwait humor in that. Definitely a few moments and a couple of daring things. I don't think it quite had the twist or there was his movies all have something about them that is really shocking or really kind of original. And this was the first time I've seen one of his where I thought, okay, this is good, but not. I don't know, just didn't have that jolt, didn't have that shock, didn't have that
But not
twist or that
special.
surprise that I really kind of wanted it to have. However, it does a few things right in the sense that it's a found footage movie with just a couple of characters, and even though the male character was kind of a you're not supposed to think he's the coolest guy in the world, you're supposed to see him as a little bit of a tool. I thought the character development was actually pretty good in the sense that the characters didn't become just annoying and abrasive to me the way that so often in found footage movies you're so sick of the characters. I thought they did a good job of drawing out the tension. And there is one scene, 19-minute scene,
19
that
minutes.
if the movie had gone someplace more interesting than it does at the end, I think it would have redeemed all the kind of slow burn, nothing much is happening aspect going into it. And that 19-minute scene set up the tension for the very end of the movie beautifully. I don't know that the movie really delivered the whatever I was expecting. I hate to even say it, but I really wonder if Bobcat Goldthwait has seen Blair Witch Project, because this movie had a lot of moments that seemed like they were almost direct homages to Blair Witch Project, but I didn't see that as intentional because there didn't seem to be any point or any payoff to that.
Awfully similar.
Yeah, but I don't want to. Again, the best part about it was, Bobcat Goldthwait did a great job of introing the film. Very funny. The Q&A was definitely the best Q&A I saw at this festival, if not one of the best Q&As I've ever been at.
Ever.
Such good-natured crowd. So fun to be there. So much you felt like this is something that to be here for you have to be here now tonight to have this experience. And I think to me that's what a film festival is all about.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I had a blast at the screening. I felt like the film was good. I think I liked it.
Yeah.
I think I had fun with it. I think it just wasn't a standout, wasn't special. It was very different for him, and I think that's probably what's more interesting about the movie is how different it is. And I think he makes a lot of different kinds of movies, even though they kind of all have, or with the exception of this one, have that twist or that odd angle that you think
that you've got to see this.
Yeah, you think you have the movie or the type of movie pegged, but it's got this weird fucking piece that you're like, okay, that's why you need to see Bobcat's new film.
Or that's why the description needed to be vague and evasive, because what happens in the middle is a legitimate surprise. I think his movies are spoilable in that sense.
Exactly. And I don't think anything really in Willow Creek does that. I mean, we didn't really address what it was about. It's basically a found footage film about a couple that goes out to spend the night on the site of the Bigfoot. What is it? The Gimli footage?
The famous Patterson film.
Patterson.
Which I wanted to ask him afterwards if he knows that the people who made the film have since come forward and explained in detail how they faked it. But I can't.
I didn't know
Whoa,
that.
really?
Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't
know
look
that
up.
either.
I don't really know that much about it at all.
I don't know if that is itself a tale that's been. I don't know if people believe that story, but I know a few years ago, it wasn't like it was major news, but definitely some people came forward and sort of, demonstrated or explained how they faked it and everything. But given that, it's a good setup for a horror film. It's a neat idea to say we're going to use, we're going to go out and we're going to find Bigfoot. I mean, of course, now there's all those Bigfoot hunter TV shows and stuff, which it seemed like it was kind of referring to that too. But some good character laughs. I thought the actress. What's her name? Alexis. What is it?
I don't know.
Hold on a second.
She's attractive though. I mean, she
Be
can
sure to
act.
mention that.
She could act. I mean, the 20-minute scene is pretty much what was the centerpiece of
that's
the
the takeaway of the best part of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Besides a couple standalone laughs, but like John said, I think it definitely is just a stretched out version of some, a lot of the scenes from the Blair Witch Project, But Alexi, John still looking.
Oh, man, the internet.
You almost got sidetracked there. You started to
I was going to jump in.
with our.
Oh, come on, internet! Don't be a puss.
But anyway, I mean, basically, I just felt like the movie just
Alexi Gilmore.
Gilmore. Okay.
Yes, Alexi Gilmore. I thought her acting in that extended scene was great. Like the expressions on her face played out exactly the sort of mixture of comedy and horror that the movie was going for, because there's legitimate fear, but there's also a sort of like kind of like, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know. I thought she did a good job of playing that beat. That it totally would have been. I mean, it would have gone up a couple of letter grades if whatever came at the end of the movie had been up to my expectations.
Sure.
You know, because like the right ending would have made all that waiting for the payoff worth it. But definitely enjoyable. I was telling Ronald before you got here, Steve, I kind of felt like, in a weird way, it almost didn't seem like a movie. It almost seemed like this is it's an experiment for Bobcat Goldthwait. It's a little bit of a cinematic prank of some sort, just to see like how far you can get people to wait. And it doesn't hurt my impression of him as a writer to think that if he's going to make a movie every year or so,
Right.
it's okay if one of them is a little bit mild. You know what I mean? If it's nothing great, I think the key thing is that you can see that he's a guy who and he even said it at the Q&A, that he wants to make a lot of different kind of movies.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if this is just his kind of stab at a horror film, it's just an unfortunate thing. I think it's dangerous to step into a genre that you don't know that much about. And I definitely could see this as a movie that could have benefited from a real horror fan coming in and saying, you know.
I'm not a big fan of like the slow burn. It picks up in the end of the second act and then gets insane in the third act all the time. I mean, because I feel like a lot of those movies, like found footage movies, are like that. There's nothing happening in the first two acts really that have anything to do. Like, it's more about the exploration, and then it just gets weirder and weirder.
Have you guys seen this poster for
Yeah.
Willow Creek?
I know, it's a great poster.
It's so fucking cool.
I know.
Oh man, it's great.
No, it is, and it really, if you saw that, I mean, that poster makes you really wish that the movie had gone
I
fucking
couldn't.
batshit.
I just saw it for the first time. I felt the same exact way. But an awesome screening. Seeing John Waters ask him questions about his movie was fucking. Oh man.
Yeah, John Waters in the audience. Bobcat Goldthwait apparently high on pain medication because he had just had some back surgery. But you know, it's like you see these Q&As and it's filmmakers mumbling into microphones, or it's audience members who don't really have questions and they just want to hear themselves talk in a crowd or something. And you know, like the one after VHS 2, people, like, it's very clear that Eduardo Sanchez directed one of 4 segments and that he wasn't one of the main producers of the movie. And it was so funny that people kept asking questions like, was it hard to arrange the movie? Was it hard to orchestrate all the different filmmakers? Who made your credits? Every question they asked him was for someone who produced the whole movie, not a guy who did a segment. But the Bobcat Goldthwait Q&A, either it was because he was able to make it funny or people were just energized, but it was good. You know, it really felt like, you know, I mean, I hope it wasn't just his star power that sort of made the audience really open to him, but you really felt like people were there to have a good night at the movies. And, you know, even though the movie was no great shakes, there were definitely some good audience reactions to different things that happened in the movie. So
yeah, he has a really big presence in Baltimore, and I mean, you know, even outside of the film festival, he does stuff with the Maryland Film Festival, like throughout the year with some of his films. So he definitely has a lot of fans. So I mean, the audience there, beyond the celebrity piece of it, I think they just like him and like his films too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the films that he's had here before, but. Definitely a really fun experience. I mean, what a great way to end the film festival.
Yeah, and everyone who saw it seemed to have that same kind of feeling. You could just
I mean, I think we all had. Everybody had fun at the screening, whether or not you could say you loved the movie or not. It was time well spent, and it was good. It was a really good time.
Yeah, definitely.
So a lot of really good movies. You know, like the only thing I saw that I didn't like was Prince Avalanche, and I saw 5 films, so 1 out of 5 was pretty awesome. And most of the films that we saw, we have some idea of the distribution plans coming up. I mean. Even Prince Avalanche is having a release later this summer.
So if anyone's hearing background noise right now, some people just got home.
Yeah, I was trying to talk over
a little
it.
Stomping. Yeah, just everyone, like, we just start beating on the table, you won't be able to hear it over it. Yeah, I would. That's it? Those are all the movies that we saw?
Yeah, it's all
That's it,
movies.
man. That's
So yeah, unfortunately, I feel a little bad. If I'd had more time to come down to the festival, I would have definitely tried to check out more of like the experimental shorts and the documentary shorts, and because a lot of times those are things that you wouldn't know to hunt down. But at least I've got my handy program here, and I have a feeling a lot of those films are going to pop up
you'll find
online
them.
at some point.
Yeah.
That's one great thing about the way things are now, is that film festivals are still the great place to be exposed to all this culture and to kind of see, like Steve was saying, to see kind of fellow film buffs out and to feel that energy, but the internet does make it very easy to find certain things that you, again, might
Absolutely.
never have seen. So.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And for it being, it seems to be getting bigger and better for it being the 15th year. I mean, I can't wait till next year, and hopefully next year maybe
Same.
we can even cover it even more and be.
Somebody
even
has
more
clearly
involved.
flushed the toilet upstairs, so we're
Nice.
getting some nice water rushing down the pipes sound.
Could be a part of our outro.
Yeah.
Right.
Washing
A
us
symbolic
away.
sound effect.
Yeah, washing us
Yeah.
out of the recording.
We are the poop that you flush.
But yeah, it was great times, and I'm glad that we could all go. But
Definitely.
definitely check out the movies that we talked about. Like I said earlier in the podcast, mdfilmfest.com. If you're from Baltimore, from Maryland, from the D.C., Delmarva area, definitely hit them up. They have the Friends of the Festival program where you can get involved and help support the film festival on an annual basis with contributions, and they give screening passes out throughout the year. They host filmmaker screenings around the city. Anybody local that listens to this, definitely worth checking out and seeing how you might be able to get involved in more of local films that are being made and even national films. And also just to check out the site, they still have the festival program up there if you want to read some films that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah.
Tons of things, like John said, we're going to probably spend some time finding online, on Netflix, on whatever over the next couple of months.
Second flush. Apparently, they went. There's a lot of bathroom going upstairs.
Yeah. They just got home,
Yeah, right,
They were holding for a long car ride. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for listening. Thanks you guys for going to the festival with me, and
Thank you.
with one another. It was a really good time.
I had a lot of fun.
I had fun doing this tonight, guys. You guys want to get together next week and record another podcast where we talk about
Absolutely.
movies?
We should do this again.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah,
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 definitely.
yeah. It's good stuff.
definitely something I'd like to repeat.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and you've made our day. Take care.
As always.